This is a story about people who lost their homes, people who are leaving their native land because it's disappeared underwater, and seeking asylum in countries less affected by climate change. These are climate refugees. One of the problems that the world has faced in the past 5 years is the increasing number of climate refugees. According to National Geographic, climate refugees are people who must leave their homes and communities because of the effects of climate change and global warming. For instance, Bangladesh is one of the countries affected by this issue. Scientists predict Bangladesh will lose 17% of its land by 2050 due to flooding caused by climate change. The loss of land could lead to as many as 20 million climate refugees from Bangladesh to countries less affected by this issue. This is only one example from the list of countries that will be affected by the rising sea levels. According to World Resources Institute, the top 5 countries contributing to climate change are China, the US, European Union, India, and Russia. While not at the top of the table, but Canada is amongst the top 10 countries to blame for major contributions to climate change. Most of these nations are located at high elevations, and the impact of emissions from their energy sector most impacts places such as Australia, Italy, Montana on the US-Canada border, the Dead Sea, and the Amazon. This is an example of injustice. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, injustice is the violation of rights or violation of rights of others. This example demonstrates how developed countries are taking away the right of residence from people in other parts of the world by contributing to climate change. Now, there has been certain controversial steps taken towards this goal at both the local level and the global level.
The government proposes that the price on carbon pollution should start at a minimum of $10 per ton in 2018.
Now it is causing great damage to the manufacturing sector, great damage to the cement sector, great damage to agriculture.
Quebec's had one since 2011. In every case, it hasn't hurt their economy.
There have been some positive efforts to fight the injustice of climate change. First and foremost, there's the Paris Agreement. Now, the Paris Agreement is aiming to keep the overall global temperature increase well below 2 degrees Celsius, and is even pursuing efforts to keep it under 1.5 degrees. The long-term goal of the Paris Agreement is to reach zero net emissions, where the total global emissions are less than or equal to the amount of greenhouse gases that plants and trees can absorb. To speak about something a little more current, the Canadian government has just recently instated the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, called the Pan-Canadian Framework.
The Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate
Now,
Change.
the Pan-Canadian Framework was developed with input from the provinces and territories, as well as Indigenous peoples, to meet Canada's emissions reduction targets. At the heart of the Pan-Canadian Framework is carbon pricing, which is a tax put on greenhouse gas emissions to try and persuade companies and corporations to reduce their carbon footprint. According to the Canadian government's website, carbon pricing is the most practical and cost-effective way to lower greenhouse gas emissions while encouraging low-carbon innovation. Alongside carbon pricing, there are complementary actions, including generating more clean electrical power, making more efficient vehicles and getting more zero-emission vehicles on the road, reducing methane from the oil and gas sector as well as from the agricultural sector, among many others. In conclusion, the fact that we are knowingly destroying our planet is horrifying, and it is a great injustice against every human being. We must recognize that without significant change, not only will the countries causing the majority of climate change harm themselves, but it will also harm the rest of the world as well. Even if we must make significant sacrifices to our way of life, it will all be worth it to save our planet that we call home.